All right, guys, I'm all done with dinner here. I've just sort of been, just kind of chilling for a little bit here. Um, so I figured now might be a good time to go on a little bit of a rant. Well, not a rant so much as just sort of expressing my thoughts about all this because it's really an interesting thing, and I just sort of wanted to give you my personal perspective. So today, with the governor shutting down all of the restaurants in the state. I feel like that just sort of, at least to me, it signaled a real like turning point as far as the economy. I don't know where we go from here. Well, I mean, at what point are you going to ease these restrictions? I mean, you can only flatten the curve so much. I mean, it's still going to spread. Yeah, sure, it's helping. Everything you do helps, but at what point are you reducing people's individual freedoms too much, That's the thing. I mean, and you're looking at, you're really looking at smaller businesses that, smaller restaurants, smaller local places that, you know, people, they're not necessarily like it's something that they would go to for the experience. They'd come to sit down and have a nice family meal, but they're not necessarily going to wait that long to get carry out from there. That's the thing. That's the thing about a restaurant. Like, you can when you can actually sit down and dine in, you can sort of at least enjoy it some. You can get yourself a drink or something and just enjoy it. But, a lot of these places, people aren't going to drive way out of their way for, to have to wait like a half hour for food. They could easily go to McDonald's or Taco Bell or Wendy's or something like that. And I think that's sort of the biggest, the biggest issue here is, I mean, you're just not gonna have. I mean, you're gonna have some, obviously, but you're just not gonna have a lot of takeout services. And there are a lot of restaurants that people don't even really know that that's an option to begin with. Because like there was this one place that I had the flu over New Year's like about a year ago, and and we got food from one of our favorite Mexican places, and I was like, oh, they do carry out. So we didn't even know that. But that's the thing. People might not even know that, and they're just going to default back to to your McDonald's, Wendy's, Taco Bell, Burger King, Chick-fil-A. I mean, not that I have anything wrong with Chick-fil-A. I love Chick-fil-A, but I mean, if we're talking about the smaller family places here, that they're going to be the hardest hit by that, at least in my opinion. And I'm sure I'll be looking back, watching this video, 2 years from now, and saying, "Oh, it wasn't quite as bad as I expected," and it probably won't be, but maybe it is. Maybe it will be. That's the thing. We just don't know at this point, and that's just what concerns me. We're taking these draconian measures to flatten the curve, but how much do you flatten the curve before you finally start letting people have their lives back? I mean, the thing is, it's going to keep spreading, and we're going to get to a month from now, and they're going to keep these restrictions in place for another month after that. Maybe after that, they'll finally open things up. But, I mean, at what point are you just spreading the disease out? Are you just pushing it further down the line? I mean, yeah, sure, you're flattening the curve, but that also means that you're spreading it out, to the point that once... I mean, what are you going to do? There are still going to be some people that have it. So, I mean, even right now with very few cases, if you just... No matter what you do, if you just sort of open up the floodgates at any point, you could open it up 2 months from now, even if you've flattened the curve, you're still going to have cases increasing. So, I mean, at what point do you just open up the floodgates, let things take their course? And I'm not saying I want people to die. That would be absolutely terrible. I have, obviously, my grampy and my grandpa, they're both 71. My grandma's 70. And, I worry about them. I mean, I think they're fairly healthy individuals, but I still do worry about them, especially because my grandpa has diabetes. That's something I worry about as far as, like, if he gets it, is he at more of a risk? Especially because he's in Florida, and we all know how many people there are down there. But, I don't know, we've just never seen anything like this before, and I don't know, I'm just afraid that we are going to do so much economic damage that we're going to be in, I don't know. I really don't know, and that's the thing that I mean. I know me personally, I know that this is something that's not really going to affect me necessarily, but I do worry about other people, other family businesses, other local places, because you don't have to worry about McDonald's and because they're a national chain, but I mean, just like the people around here, you know, I do have a lot of love for my home state, my home area, and I worry about those people. I really do, and that's the thing. I'm not taking a partisan side here, because we've had both Democrats and Republicans that have, as far as governors, that have put this into place, and it's really just a whole thing where, if one state does it, everybody else does it. Before we know it, I'm a little worried here that before we know it, everybody's going to be stuck in their houses, absolutely no option to go out and get anything. That's the thing. At what point and I mean, people have gotten so ridiculous with it, with canceling every last thing. I want to know, are you going to close all parks in the state of Michigan? Because I need somewhere to go. I need somewhere to go walk off my worries right now, Like, I need to go kayaking. I need to go walking. I just need to get some exercise in. And that's the type of thing that, I mean, I'm seriously afraid that they're going to close parks and stuff like that, even though you're out in the nice open range, you don't really have any sort of, you've got plenty of space. There's very little risk. I mean, if you want to shut down buildings within those parks where a lot of people congregate, fine, do that. But don't shut down every single park within a state. Don't shut down the state parks or the national parks or anything like that. They're places that people go because they're trying to escape this. People do not want to be trapped in their houses for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, however long this ends up being straight. And, people don't want to just be in their houses for that long. You have to provide them with some sort of option to get out and do something. And I'm just worried that at some point here, we're going to take this way too far. I still think we've gone too far at this point. I think you went too far by closing all the restaurants, and that's the thing. And I understand the nature behind it. I understand it, but it's just I don't know. I mean, at what point do you just have to let things happen and say, listen, we can't restrict you? There are some people that, and I feel like that's just sort of the nature of, I don't know, maybe that's just my attitude towards less government involvement. As far as, maybe you should just let private businesses do their thing, and if people want to take the risk and go out there and go get something to eat, that's fine. And that's the thing. I don't know, that's just sort of my attitude in general. I guess you could say a little bit politically too, that I don't think that necessarily the government should be getting involved in that, but obviously I get involvement in this type of situation. I just think maybe in this case things have gone a little too far, a little bit, as far as just we're talking about private businesses here that sort of, and I know that, even if they have the authority to do that, I mean, when you think about it too, and this is something that very few people actually realize, technically banning people getting together is unconstitutional. Now, of course, nobody's going to actually challenge that, understandably so, because we're in a state of emergency nationally and at the state level. Nobody's going to challenge that, and I would compare that to, taking an AP class. I would compare that to back when Lincoln suspended the writ of habeas corpus, and when he gave, I don't know, several $1 million to, a pair of associates to actually assist with war efforts. Those were things that, I mean, I don't know that the first one was really necessarily unconstitutional. I think maybe, I think you can do that during wartime, but, there were a number of questionable things that Lincoln did during the Civil War, but people accepted it because they knew that it was for their own good. But, technically, there are actually a number of these, congregational, bans here that are actually unconstitutional. If they were challenged in court, they would not stand. Or at least I don't think they would. I mean, I don't know. It just depends how a judge would rule on an individual case. But I mean, it just at what point do people get sort of fed up with it? I mean, people have only really been confined to their homes effectively for a couple of days, but at what point do you get tired of that? I mean, I've only been in here for I don't know, maybe 2 days or so, just just hanging out at home, and I'm already just getting sort of tired of it. I need to go out somewhere. And going to the Metro Park yesterday was a nice, refreshing break, but I need to be able to do that consistently, and that's just my question in all this. It's when can I do that again? When can my life go back to normal? That's the number one thing. People's lives are not normal anymore, and I guess I really do care a lot about the seniors, at my school, because this is completely sabotaging the entire, all of the, just when we're starting to get into that season where they're having the last of everything, they're having their last athletic competitions, athletic spring sports seasons, all their last dances, their graduation. Is that going to be put in jeopardy at the end of May? I mean, I don't think so, but maybe. I don't know. And that's the thing. At what point do you have to just admit we are sabotaging these people? We have to just let them do something. We have to, let them enjoy their lives, because this is a once in a lifetime experience, and instead we're going to make them not do that because we're going overboard for this. And it's like I said, of course I support preventative measures, but at what point do you just have to let things happen, I guess I'm just looking at this from, of course, I care about people that are at risk for this, but I also care about people who, this is completely ruining not ruining their lives, but ruining this particular part of their lives in other ways, as far as, economically, this is not a sustainable way to live. It's just not. And just as far as experiences that they'll never get to have, people will never get to have. And I guess the question is, where do you find that balance where do you find the balance between being, instating preventative measures and letting people have lives, That's the thing. I mean, and I would argue that that's the case with a lot of other things too. There are a lot of things that you can prevent, but that would also be restricting people's personal freedoms. Like let's say, okay, there are a lot of people that, and this was something at my youth and government convention that we actually sort of discussed. The question is, is forcing somebody to wear a helmet on a motorcycle, yeah, it's preventing deaths. But at the same time, it's also forcing people to do something. And I know that in this scenario, in this particular situation here, there's two groups of people, and those two groups of people are the people affected by the virus itself and the people affected by not getting to do stuff. But the concept's similar, I guess. And the number one thing I would say here is just, where do you draw the line? Where do you draw that fine line right down the middle where you can say people can still have a good time, people can still enjoy their lives, but also we're helping to stop the spread of this disease, and where is that line? And I guess that's about all I have to say. Those have just sort of been my views for the past few days here, and I'm getting more and more concerned about it. I'm not concerned about this virus affecting me, and I know that sounds really arrogant, and I really do worry about other people too. But me on a personal level, I don't worry about dying from this or something, because if I got it, I'm sure I would recover within, a week or two, and I'd be fine. I mean, I do worry about other people, like I said, but I'm not worried about this affecting me, the virus itself, but just restricting every single thing that, just people trying to live their lives, and, it's just something that's depressing, and I get that this is just going to have to be a new normal at this point, but it's just depressing to have to live this way. It's depressing to have to see other people live this way. It's just depressing to not be able to be free, to not be able to just live your life, and I understand that you have to sacrifice a lot of that in a situation like this, but where do you draw the line, is my question, That's just my 2 cents, I guess that's about it. A little bit of a little bit of just my thoughts on this whole thing, um, as of yet, and I'll probably come back to you guys in a little bit with the daily news. Um, so I know this has been like 15 minutes now that I've been talking, but and I'm sorry about that, but that's just my opinion on the whole thing. I'm sure it'll evolve even more as we go on here, but just it's just depressing, I guess. That's all. When will I be able to? I mean, like last week, like a week ago, less than a week ago, even I was still living my life just like normal, and now just look where we are. And one of the saddest things about all this is that we went from point A to point B with almost no transition period. It just all fell like dominoes, and that's the weirdest thing about all this. And I've come to realize, I've come to accept, the world that we're living in now. The fact that this is what's happening, because to me it seemed like surreal like 3 or 4 days ago, but I've come to accept it now. But it's still just mind-boggling, honestly. I don't know, but anyway, all right. Thanks for listening to my little rant, guys. Those are just my thoughts on this whole thing, and I'll be back in a little bit.